Welcome to episode 144 of the Omnigamers Club podcast, the podcast for games on all platforms, including the Ultra Hand. I am Daniel Winter.
And I'm Mark USA. How's it going, Daniel?
Going well. Nice to return to a little one-on-one action here. We've got a lot to catch up on. Been a busy couple of weeks.
That's right. Yeah, last episode was a great talk. A little hectic with four people. We don't usually do that many. So I think two is comfortable, three is comfortable. Four is good too. It just takes a little bit of extra coordination, but it was a good talk if you missed last episode.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, so regular format, three topics. We're going to do intro, appetizer, which is a little tidbits, kind of timely stuff or things we've discovered recently. Main segment, we're going to be covering a couple of games. I think we're both talking about the same two games.
Yeah, we've had a bit of crossover these last couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, a little bit more coordination, which is a good thing. And then the third segment, which is off-topic topic to round it all out. So why don't we begin with yourself, Daniel? Anything interesting you of late?
Yeah, I'll just throw to my intro there, so that makes sense. I wasn't sure what course to fit this in, but a little book I've been reading is called Super Nintendo by Keza Macdonald. I'm familiar with Keza's work from it wasn't Crossplay. She does a podcast with Patrick Klabick from Crossplay, I think. I can't remember the name of the podcast, but nevertheless, she had a book, came out late last year, I believe, all about the history of Nintendo, basically. And fairly broad, but rather fascinating look through the history of the company. Fairly hagiographic, I think, in terms of, like, there's not much to criticize here. It's mostly talking about what Nintendo does really well, what makes them special, what's made them succeed over the years. It sort of focuses on it goes through the lens of basically focusing on one IP at a time. Like, obviously, it starts with like Mario and then Donkey Kong, or maybe I have those in back to front. I think Donkey Kong, after all, was their first video game, I think, or one of the first sort of big hits.
Their first big arcade hit, that's for sure. And of course, they ported it to home.
The book does use some of those IPs to then launch into other explorations. Like the chapter on Kirby actually ends up being largely about Satoru Iwata and how he had such a different focus. Like, his management style was just so different, which was, I mean, coming from very much a business, family-run company, he wasn't business-minded. He was a developer, and like, just in hindsight, appreciating the level of how upfront and just like talking directly to players and being very forthcoming and about putting his face out there as the public face of the company. And I think everyone, obviously, when he died prematurely, over 10 years ago now, it was a huge loss. And it really made me feel that again in hindsight.
Right, pretty shocking news when that happened, and I know that Satoru Iwata was really loved by pretty much everyone. You know, fans of Nintendo, business. He really killed it for a lot of their business initiatives, and developers in particular really respected him, especially internally and even outside of Nintendo, because he came from that background. He had a firm work ethic and really believed in the work and really supporting their teams. And it was really of a passing of a generation when he passed on.
Yeah, I mean, you were just talking recently about how Nintendo doesn't feel like it has many sort of must-buy games, that the Switch 2 is floundering a little bit. And it does, I mean, that could be argued back and forth, but it does feel like the Nintendo has lost a bit of its identity. That energy that it had in the era with Iwata and Reggie, and like just those Nintendo Directs had a much different energy back in those days.
Yeah, it's very true. I won't poo-poo Nintendo too much, because they've come out of worse slumps. They've always gone up and down, and their low lows are almost as high as their high highs. So I'm not counting them out yet. There could be more good stuff to come.
Yep. Yeah, and as to say, I really did enjoy that book. It wasn't a lot new. It's largely synthesizing a lot of existing interviews and history a lot of people will know, but pulling it all in one space, it really puts into perspective the Nintendo's unique take on the video game scene. So I really enjoyed that book.
Yeah, speaking of unique Nintendo stuff, I spoke about my visit to Japan last year, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I did see the Ultra Hand in person because, of course, they have a museum of their not just their software but their analog toy past, all on display behind glass, of course. But they had other fun stuff like a love tester and a batting cage, and a lot of these things are interactive, so you can actually play with these things. And like a giant bazooka-sized light gun blaster in an interactive shooting gallery. A whole lot of fun. If you ever make it to Kyoto, make sure to reserve your tickets in advance because you need reservations. You can't just rock up there. You can book them about a month or so in advance. So check that out before you go.
Yeah, that was perhaps one of the most interesting errors of the book was that as Nintendo was gradually transitioning from toys into video games, a lot of experimentation trying to see what sticks. With Gunpei Yokoi, I think his name is, was the innovator of a lot of those devices.
Inventor of the Game Boy, the original DMG.
Yeah. And it was a note at the very end of the book saying how like there is that museum, obviously, that showcases a lot of Nintendo's history, but it's just showing the devices. There's not necessarily a lot of history of like there's still a lot of missing pieces as to how that company evolved. Always looking forward to the next thing, right?
That's right. Yeah. The Nintendo Museum is interesting because it's more about like seeing. It's not very much about reading. There are little placards and whatever, but they're very, very small. And it's more about like kind of witnessing the kind of objects. So
experiencing.
They have a retail package for every single game of every single region that they officially put out, for instance. So they have prototypes of consoles that were never made it to market. They have the original consoles, of course. They have even kind of audio like shotgun projectors that will project the music from a game when you stand in front of a display. So it's more about kind of witnessing, seeing. It's kind of like a shrine if you think about it. Japan is a land of shrines, and Shintoism is a belief, that there's a spirit in everything, in trees, in a book, in a video game console. So it's kind of like a shrine to the objects that Nintendo has created. And you need books like Keza's book here to kind of fill in the gaps of the historical detail.
Breaking that mysticism around the company.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, we read, what was it? The Fight Magic Items.
Yes.
Last year when we were just talking about RPGs specifically. So, yeah, it's great that there are so many good video game history books of late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm reading a couple more now, so more on that in the next episode, I guess.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to give a couple of back-to-back news bits that I saw, some good, some bad, but there's a theme to them. So it was a big week in Star Trek news, and listeners probably know I'm a fan. I think you're a somewhat of a fan. Maybe not as deep as me.
Bit of a neophyte.
Yeah, but that's all cool. It takes all comers for such a long-running franchise to be successful, and that franchise may be more or less successful. Now, basically, the new era of Star Trek shows is over. Apparently, at least they are over in Canada. So basically, all the shows of the recent generation, so what was that? Discovery, Picard,
Academy?
Strange New Worlds, and the latest Star Trek, Starfleet Academy.
That's right, yes. Yeah.
Have been canceled. Starfleet Academy is over. I don't even know. I haven't watched it. So it's over with season 2. So more episodes may air, but the filming is done. And we know this because they've announced as much. The studios are shuttering in Toronto. I think that's where they were doing the filming. And all the sets and the props are being auctioned off. So that's a sad thing to hear and see. But, we've lost Star Trek before. Sometimes actually twice before, if you think about it. And for long spans of years. So I'm not all out of hope that it's entirely missing. But, I don't know. Perhaps I and many people have had mixed feelings about the latest generation of episodes. And that's not even necessarily about the quality of the work, because some of the new stuff has been great and really respectful to the old legacy and really trying new things and exploring new Frontiers, which has always been the spirit of the franchise. But just like how they delivered it with the streaming model has been challenging. Just a lot of people can't afford to buy another streaming plan just to watch new episodes. So I will definitely be supporting those shows in, Blu-ray format. But, you can't just make a show to go straight to Blu-ray, right? So, unfortunately, it seems like the era of new Star Trek shows is over for now. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still very slowly working my way through Next Generation. I watched a couple of episodes of Strange New Worlds, I think it was, and the energy didn't really grab me. I mean, obviously, a lot of people have really enjoyed that. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that like you let a franchise die or take a breather. Basically, they have been firing on all cylinders for a while now, and I think maybe it needs a break to like let it recalculate and refresh what they want to achieve with this franchise.
Yeah, my challenge with the latest stuff was that it was kind of like a shotgun model. Is like they just blasted off
Trying to
so
figure out what
much
sticks.
all at once, and a lot of it was great. Like Lower Decks, so fantastic. That was kind of like maybe the first indicator when they canceled that, because that was just really hitting its such a good job they did on that show, and they canceled it out of the blue. And conceivably, that was maybe one of the cheaper shows to run because it was just, just animated. But they didn't have to, construct sets and all that sort of stuff. Great cast, great work. Yeah, so that's really unfortunate. And it says something for a fan of that franchise as big as I am, that I couldn't keep up with the shows.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's another problem. Is like maybe they should have spaced things out a little bit. It was the reboots happened in a time of the whole cinematic universe, right?
Marvel's sort of upright. Marvel was working up the TV network of series, and then those all
Yep.
sort of crashed and burned.
Disney Plus is a new thing at that time, so everyone was high on franchise kind of synergy and cinematic universes, and they tried to hit that hard, and they thought that after 15 years or whatever, we could all handle 3 shows dropping at the same time. Well, I couldn't handle it. So I couldn't handle it, biggest fan as I am, probably few others could.
Who even has the time, let alone the inclination?
Exactly, I certainly did it. Okay, some other more positive Star Trek news. There are a lot of actually, this is another bummer first. Okay. Star Trek, what is it called? Resurgence, a relatively new, it's about 3-year-old PC game, which is a kind of modeled on the kind of Telltale Games model of
yes.
adventure games. It came out 3 years ago, and I own it. I haven't played it. Maybe not a good sign. It's being shut down. It's being shuttered. So I don't know if it's still on sale, but basically they're delisting it.
Oh.
They have announced that they are delisting it. So if you haven't bought it and you're interested, buy it now if it's still available. But it won't be available soon.
I seem to recall some positive buzz around that. I think from Rob Zachney, I want to say, had good things to say. I mean, I'm guessing it's like licensing is expensive to renew year on year.
That's literally it. We're losing access to these products because of licensing deals. And, sure, if you bought it on Steam or GOG or whatever, they will honor it, so they'll keep it on digital, but new people can't find it just because they won't, the companies that publish it won't pay up for the licenses. So this is sad to see. I mean, we saw all this sort of stuff with the Disney mergers and the Warner Brothers canceling left, right, and center, finished movies and TV shows just because of licensing. In this digital era, we're losing access to things that we loved, that were created. So maybe if you can, get DRM copies, get physical copies whenever you can. It's another sad sign. Okay, so the positive third Star Trek news to round things out is there's some new games that are out. I don't know if they're out just yet, but they've been announced. So there are 2 new Star Trek themed escape room games.
Oh.
So there's one based on the DS9 license, and then there's one based on the Lower Decks license. So, these are kind of really out of the blue. These are kind of kind of Star Trek themed. No one was asking for these things specifically. So, if you're a fan, you will enjoy them conceivably. This is not the only Star Trek Lower Decks game out there. I think there's a pinball, super pinball. You know that one by Jeff Engelstein?
Oh, yeah, super skill pinball.
Super Skill Pinball with
Yes, you're
various
right.
Star Trek licenses, and Lower Decks is one of those. And of course, there's Lower Decks material for the Star Trek TTRPG as well. So if you still have games and you love Star Trek, then you can still access it. It's still accessible to you, and there's new stuff coming out. So it's not all bad news. But I, for myself, I still need a little bit more time to catch up on all the Star Trek that is out there.
So when you say escape rooms, do you mean like a physical escape room or like the in a box
I think
experience?
they're escape room in a box products
Okay.
like that Exit series and
Right,
things
right,
like
right.
that.
Unlock. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll share a link in our episode notes, and maybe I'll check it out just for the good vibes. I love DS9, so more games in that license and setting.
There was that Voyager game I think came out recently that had some good buzz around it.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, that's a really good point. That is actually the latest kind of big scope Star Trek game, and I tried the demo of it, and it was pretty cool. Like you could play the literal pilot episode as a game, and maybe you might make different choices than Janeway or whatever it
It was
did.
like an FTL style simulator, I think, if I
Very
recall.
much so, and in a lot of that just totally makes sense. This is a ship that's cast out into space, and they gotta make their way home. So you know what the goal is. You know where they start. What kind of surprises are they going to hit along the way? It was the premise of the show, which is good. Kind of Lost in Space, remade, and it's a good premise for a video game. So I definitely want to check out the retail copy of that. But hey, who's got the time? Anyways, I've taken up a lot of time. How about you?
Couple of quick bits of news to run through. A game that we talked about at the Vancouver Game Garden, one of my highlights from there, called Generation Exile. It just hit 1.0. So you can now go buy that and experience the full thing. That was a sort of a city builder on a generation ship with very much a hope punk sort of aesthetic and vibe, I guess. I remember there being a layer of like character creation and sort of procedural interactions between some of the characters that I really enjoyed, or at least I had some potential from what I saw in the demo of that. So I'd like to dig into that a little more.
Great. Sounds good.
Also, a couple of weeks ago, there was the Triple I initiative that I didn't have the chance to talk about last week, but there was some exciting announcements there. For one, new game from Sunset Visitor, makers of 1000 Time Resist, a local studio that is. The new game is Prove You're Human, so playing with themes of AI. It has this real meta layer of like capture, like the capture grids of like select all of the squares that have a motorcycle or something, right? But it has like this first person interactive elements of those that looked really stylish. Playing with some sort of multimedia elements that they've did really well in 1000 Times Resist. Listening to an interview with Remap, they apparently have another also covering some themes of like severance, the sort of outie and innie sort of different personalities at work and outside work, which obviously very rich themes to explore there. So very interested in that.
Yeah, I really like the Severance TV show, so definitely I want any more new stuff of that theme where possible.
It's a rich vein to tap. But yeah, a couple of other announcements. There was At Fate's End from Thunder Lotus, the makers of Spiritfarer, who do some really incredible 2D animation. There's new Risk of Rain expansion. There's a new Don't Starve standalone, also from Clay, another local studio. So lots to be excited about in the indie space there.
Yeah, we talked about how we make good tabletop games in Vancouver last week, but we make really, really good indie video games in Vancouver. I guess that's evidenced by the conventions, the Vancouver Game Fair, for instance, that we've
The Game
covered
Garden.
recently.
Yeah.
Game Garden, that's right. I have the sticker right over here.
There you go. And there's another one. There was another showcase as well. I can't remember the name of, but it's quite a few.
Awesome. All right, what do you think? Shall we talk about our main subject?
Yeah, so lots to talk about there too. So why don't we jump to the main?
Let's do it. Okay, so shall we talk about the bigger title?
Why don't we both talk about the game that we played in person this last week? Because you hinted that we both played a little bit of Wild Sea, the TTRPG, together. And that wasn't even the only Forge in the Dark game that we played in one week. We managed to get to Rain City Games for a one-shot to play some cyberpunk augmented. No vowels allowed, I guess.
Yeah, it's for those that are confused, it's CBR plus PNK. That's at least how you search for it in text. And I didn't even know it was called Augmented, but I guess there you go. It comes in this cute little, I guess, box, and it is shorter than you might think. It's not a book per se, so that's an interesting format for a TTRPG. Yeah, it was cool to play the one shot, and it's an interesting system, but very different than the original Blades in the Dark or the Scum and Villainy that we covered in one of our future episodes.
We also covered, we did discuss this game a little bit, talking to Graham Gentz from MythWorks when we had him on the podcast. So go back and listen to that. I can't remember the exact number, I'll put it in the show notes. But he was involved in the development of that, if I recall correctly. And this was published by MythWorks in 2023, credited by Emmanuel Mello, Raul Ronaldo, Louis Mello, and various others. I believe there is a expansion coming out soon too, and I think the scenario we played was actually an advanced version of one of those expansion scenarios.
Right. This game is very interesting. Should we talk about the kind of the format of the game first before we talk about the kind of the experience that we had in person?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned this is a little different from Blades and Scum and Villainy, and it is designed as a one shot. And I think it's very aptly framed around the one last job that is so key to cyberpunk and the heist aesthetic.
Yeah, that's right. I don't remember the name of the GM who Alex, who ran through the game with us, but he explained it very well. This is your last job, and basically he explained that you want to cut directly to the climax. So if this was a movie or a TV series like Cyberpunk Edge Runners, you'd want to go straight to the last episode when everything has ratcheted up to the maximum tension and everything's going to unravel or you ultimately succeed. You want to get to there. And because a lot of these cyberpunk stories don't always have a happy ending, it's fine if you don't succeed, but there will be kind of like an epilogue moment, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in just a bit.
Yeah, we talked about in Mothership how one shots are great for like just pulling the restraints off basically and letting you just fire on all cylinders and not have to worry about the stakes of what's going to happen to your character and just play for the interesting moments.
Yeah, that's right. I've talked about the kind of experiences I've had playing RPGs with my neighbors. We play a bunch of different platforms. Played Cthulhu, D&D, and Cypher, and more recently we've been playing Eat the Reich, which is also a short-term game. I don't think you could accomplish it very easily in one shot, but it's more like for 2 or 3 evening sessions. But it has an end. You know what it is, and you want to get there, as fast and as rollicking as possible.
You were telling me though that your group had trouble with taking too much time and exploring all the nooks and crannies. It was the same issue we had with Scum and Villainy to an extent. Is like keeping that momentum up.
That's what I wanted to touch upon just now. Is that one shots really free you from that. One shots, everyone knows. Well, I don't have to worry about extending the life of my character because they're not going to have a life after this one session. Their time on the stage is over at that point, right? So I feel that traditional RPGs, and my neighbors will probably admit they are traditional RPG players, they're all about preservation. right? They want to
Safe place.
make their characters survive as long as possible so that they can have
You see the progression and
years.
the getting new skills and experience points and yeah.
Right, and I think that is kind of baked into kind of old school, not really old-ish school, because I know that OSR and things like that are really about high lethality. So it's a kind of a return to lethality so that there's actually tension again. And the thing I like about a one shot is that the tension is there, just because everything counts. Everything that you do counts because there's not going to be another session. So basically, I want to echo you. One shots are very cool because they allow you that freedom, and you don't need to worry so much about that preservation. Okay, let's talk about the format of this product because I've been holding it in my hand. So I showed you this little sleeve before, and inside, if you open it up, comes this really attractive package, and you unfold it, and is it a book? It opens like a book, but it's not a book. It is comprised of pamphlets, and there are multiple pamphlets, and it looks like a lot. It looks like there's a dozen in there, but really, the bulk of the core rules of this game are in one sliver thin pamphlet. It's like a, quarter fold or eightfold or whatever. So these are the rules. I hope you read them all. It's just that.
Have you
that
read
long.
through it personally?
Oh yeah, of course
Yeah?
I've read through it. It's so short.
Obviously you've played it now, but like just reading through it, does that give you a good sense of what this game is capable of, or do you feel like it's a little too brief?
It is. When I read it, it struck fear in me, and the fear in me comes from me being a not oldest school RPG player. I wasn't around in the 70s when RPGs were really starting, and I was just being born in the 80s, or just growing up in the 80s, when it was having its heyday per se. So I really came about to RPGs in the 90s, and there were already at that time there were tons of source books, tons of supplements, handily available at the hobby shop counters. So basically, you had a universe already pre-written for you, and in a lot of cases, you had entire campaigns pre-written for you. So that was standard for me. I never saw a world without adventures pre-written in books and campaigns pre-written in books and multiple source books to flesh out a universe. When I saw just this pamphlet, I felt fear because there's no safety net.
You're free. You're free from the shackles of rules. Make your own rules.
Well,
Just go with the flow.
The rules are all there. So it's not that it doesn't give you rules. It's that it doesn't give you a world. It doesn't tell you what's going to happen in the first scene, the second scene, and the third scene. And that's what struck fear in me. Just putting a pause on that theme for a second. The rest of the bulk of one side of the pamphlet is of the booklet is these folios, and each of these you get these handed out as we did in our RPG session, and you write out very few details, and you write very few stats, and you can get up and running in about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. For
a nice OSR game, you basically just roll your stats, and you don't even roll. You just create your character, and off you go.
You just write them, fill them in, and really, it takes no time at all. And that's another really cool thing. Okay, I said this game doesn't have books and books of setting and supplements, but it actually does have supplements. They're just really, really small.
Very piecemeal and modular, right? Like a couple of those are just like stats of some factions or monsters or bounty hunters you might want to pull from.
So these are also paper thin folios. And basically the first one that I showed you is just the rules. And if you want to make this into a more Shadowrun version, then you add the plus weird. So it's cyberpunk plus weird, gives you magic and mystical creatures, which is, of course, what Shadowrun is. Cyberpunk meets magical. And there's even another setting expansion called PRDTR, which is, of course, just like the 80s movie Predator. So it sets you in that sort of thing. And then there's other pre-written adventures and other expansions that get mixed up in there. So it's not that you have nothing. It's just that you have really distilled
It's a
suggestions.
loose sketch. It's like a storyboard of here's where it could go, but you got to fill in the colors and the lines yourself.
That's right. So you have inspiration, but you don't have anything telling you this is exactly how it's going to go. So you, as a GM who's going to run this, have to be really comfortable with
Hmm.
running RPGs and thinking on the fly. And so it's not like there aren't any pre-written things. As you hinted, the forthcoming expansion is going to have pre-written adventures. But, I was looking at what Alex was doing on his laptop or tablet or whatever, and he was just kind of looking at little squares, like little tiny squares that had a couple of paragraphs on them each. And it's like, if this scenario happens, these things happen. If this trigger happens, these things happen. But it's just like a bit of a paragraph at a time. It's very, very loose. Basically, you don't have like a 60-page booklet that tells you exactly what the dialogue of each NPC says. It's very, very loose and by the seat of your pants. And I guess the word I would use is kind of concise.
Well, it gives you a little prompt to just like flavor the scene, and then lets the players build out upon that, and basically let the players create the rest of the world and run with that, rather than having to give them a fully fleshed out setting and scene, and this like very force feed the campaign to you, right?
Right. Yeah. So if you're coming from, a D&D model or even a, what is it, like Savage Worlds or whatnot, where basically every scenario is accounted for. It's like, give me 20 minutes so I can find the rule for that. That doesn't exist in this,
Mm,
right?
mm.
The rules that do matter are there, but it won't take you 20 minutes to find them because there's not that many pages. And this is actually kind of freeing as well. I said that I felt a little bit scared because there's no safety net story wise, but because the rules are so slim, you don't really have to fear much as a GM running this game because there's not that many permutations. It's like know the core rules, and the rest you just have to
Mm.
go with the flow and
Yeah.
make up, and ask your players to contribute there as well.
Yeah, so I mean, as a player, you showed off some of those brochures that you're filling in. It's nice to have an interface that you can fill in and refer to, and there is a lot of information. I did find that a little too dense, and the way the information is laid out isn't necessarily easy to internalize, especially when you're just given one, like, okay, here we go. There wasn't much time to read through it and figure out what your options are. So I don't know that we were taking full advantage of some of our options and leveraging all of the levers that we had to pull, like your flashbacks, and you can resist various things at moments of stress, and there's a lot of push and pull in this game.
Yeah, if you weren't having a one shot, I mean, you could ease your players into it a little bit more, and maybe you could even do a session zero where you give this to the players in advance and they have a moment to peruse it because, while it is short, probably a player could, spend about 10 minutes reading this and really internalizing it. We were kind of running at a breakneck speed, and plus you and I had played you know,
Scum Mm.
Forged in the Dark based games before. So it's building upon things. We already knew about flashbacks.
Mm.
We already knew about load, which is load is a really cool system, of course.
Yes.
And this game really emphasizes that. So flashbacks are there. I have had so many games of Shadowrun in particular just break down and grind to a halt because that is a game about planning for a run. It's right in the name. You get these jobs, you aren't given all the info, so you have to plan in advance, and quite often unexpected things will happen. So basically you spend an entire session planning for the run, then the run happens, and it turns out you have none of the gear that you actually need because you guessed wrong.
So the payoff doesn't match the setup, whereas in Forged in the Dark, basically you do the setup retroactively, so it
That's
always
right.
matches.
Yeah, and that is really freeing as well as a player.
Hmm.
So I think that goes to the spirit of what we initially talked about. Cut straight to the climax. So you don't have an entire session that's ground down to a halt because the players can't agree exactly what unknown scenario to account for. you know that there's unknown unknowns, and you deal with that, and you handle that by load. So I'm sure we've explained it in the Scum and Villainy section before, but basically each player decides whether they want a light, medium, or heavy load, and that determines whether they're kind of incognito or kind of could get found out with a
Going
cursory
loud.
search, or everyone knows you're loaded to bear. So I like the spirit of that. It allows players to customize without being pinning things down too tightly. And our scenario was interesting because like we got chances to try see things and try things over, let's just say.
Yeah, I don't think we want to spoil some of the specifics that we saw, but it was a very novel structure, the scenario that we
Sure.
played, in that it was a time loop, basically.
Yeah. I actually felt like it was quite cool. I won't spoil any of the specifics of things
Hmm.
that happened, but in structure it was very much like blueprints, I thought. Basically, you were given a number of footsteps, like in blueprints, which kind of correlate to actions. They're basically like kind of time credits. And the GM, Alex, told us, well, this is going to take up 1 unit of time.
Okay, it's an action selection in a board game, right? It's like you've got
Right.
three actions to spend this turn or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And we knew that that was limited to the start. And basically, as we did more loops, we got more footsteps,
Mm.
which gave us more time units to extend more, do more before the loop restarted, and we unraveled the scenario, learned more, and adapted. And that was a really, really cool setup. It allowed us, it's a good intro to the system because
Mm.
it showed us all the permutations of what you could do and what you could need to do.
It did put some sort of handrails on the game for better and worse, I think, both because we're all fairly new to this system. I mean, some of the other players were like they'd only played D&D before, right? So you don't want to like throw open the gates of possibility. But like it was literally a bit of a bottle episode. Like the setting was very much a contained. It was very hard to bring in ideas and things that could potentially happen within the framework of where we were, I think. So I felt a little bit stuck on occasion trying to bring things into the game.
I enjoyed it as a puzzle.
Yeah.
So, I've done a lot of IF games, interactive fiction
Mm.
games, and they have that sort of setup where there's a scenario, and you just have to like throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, and just keep trying, keep trying, keep trying, and then you see kind of where the triggers are and which directions they go. And this very felt very much like that, or like a blueprints where you just have to see what happens. And to that credit, it's not as though the scenarios repeated exactly the same each time.
Mm.
In fact, in each run, I felt like the GM Alex was attempting to introduce a new glitch, I think he called it. So one new, pretty significant element was added in each run. New situations happened, new characters showed up that we didn't see before, or characters behaved differently, or things different happened, and we had to adapt.
It did feel like those glitches ended like right before things careened off into just the truly wacky stuff. Though they always like, oh, loop's over, time to go back, and like I wanted to see what was going to happen there, right, and let that play out a little more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we differ there, but I kind of liked the repetition, and I liked that it gives you some more license as a player when
Mm.
you know that you don't have any consequences, that you can try out wacky stuff.
Because a lot of our resources were resetting basically, so we could really be free with like playing risky moves. Or we were already doing so as a one shot, but even more so because like we're taking very little damage. We could just go hard and go loud every time.
Yeah, our one shot had a reset button. And one of those resources that we had at our disposal is stress. So basically, each character has like a track of 6 or 7. What is it now? It looks like 7 stress markers. And basically, you can do certain things like if you want to assist a player, you can spend a stress and mark it down. If you want to do a flashback, you mark a certain number of stress, 1 or 2, depending on how complex it is. And one of the flashbacks that I introduced was pretty sizable. Basically, I basically said my character went to college and he studied this entire science. So the GM rightly charged me a lot of stress for that because
Trauma.
that's the
Retroactively.
trauma, the actual amount of things that would have to change in history to make that happen, significant. So I thought that was fair. So that's just one example of the resources that you can spend in this game.
Yeah, some of the tension of the resources wasn't entirely felt with the resetting, but it was just a very novel structure, I thought.
Yeah. One thing that I don't know if I entirely gel with, I don't know if I entirely like about Fortune of the Dark games is the, what do they call it? It's the effect and what is it? Approach and effect. There's like two sides
Right.
to something.
I always come in Villainy, there was like three factors when you before you roll, there's like three levers you can pull to like affect the difficulty of a roll, basically.
Here it is: approach plus skill. No, threat and effect. That's what it's called. So basically, the GM needs to make an assessment of two factors: threat and effect. And the threat is like, what are the consequences to you if this fails? So some things are just like low threat and low effect. They're just kind of like nothing, it doesn't really shake things up.
Mm.
And some things are high threat and high effect, which means it's risky, super risky, but the payout is going to be huge. So I like roughly the concept of it, but I don't always want to spell out for players what the consequences of their actions are. I think that that's it sort of
Plays your cards a little much, doesn't it?
it does, and it also kind of I wouldn't say railroads the players a little bit, but some players are always going to be risk averse.
Mm.
So if you say it's risky, then they're going to be like, oh, sorry. You know, we talked about self-preservation before, so I feel like that's going to hold back players that inherently are risk averse.
As I said, it felt fairly easy to justify rolling four dice on just about every roll in some way or another. So there was very few failures when we were rolling. Even the succeed with consequences, but didn't really. It wasn't much of an effect felt with the tension in this particular scenario.
Yeah, just as a reminder, basically every character has four stats called approaches, and basically you can have 0, 1, or 2 ticks in each of those approaches, and basically that determines how many basic dice you do. This is very much PBTA powered by the apocalypse, very, very traditional that way, which is, the kind of the foundation of Forged in the Dark. And then you typically add a skill to that. So it's approach plus skill. And if you have, once again, you can have 0, 1, or 2. You can actually have 3 in a skill, but it's basically up to 2 basic pips in a skill, and then a third specialization. So you spend one of your kind of skill points to specialize. And I think that third one doesn't even give you a die. It just gives you a
It's like an
specialization.
advantage, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why Daniel was saying that you often can roll up to 4 because you can convince the GM, I'm going to evade this aggressively.
We did have a very generous GM, to be fair.
Yes, yeah, he was very, very forgiving. Let's just say. I would have been a little bit more stingy with that, but that plays towards the style of GM. Yeah, so this is an interesting system, and I think it's got a lot of flexibility to it. Like, it's a loose framework which can be adapted. Obviously, this has been adapted from something like Forged in the Dark, and I think that this is very different than Forged in the Dark, and I think it's not Forged in the Dark. I think it's very, very much the bones and the loosest framework from Forged in the Dark, but it's not literally Blades where there's downtime in between each session. You're building out your crew, your territory of your gang, factions, or in the case of Scum and Villainy, your alliances and your spaceship.
It's a simulation layer, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. So that's a very significant and very kind of complex component of Forged in the Dark games, and it's a lot of overhead as well. Not every player and not every group is going to really appreciate or enjoy that level of overhead and upkeep that typical Forged in the Dark games like Blades and Scum and Villainy have. This one removes and divorces all of that upkeep and all of that downtime, because essentially there is no downtime. Once again, one shot. You don't really need a downtime because you're not going to have another session.
That's it. I still do think you need a pretty confident GM just to keep things on the rails. Like I said, you can't rely on the rules as a sort of a backup to support. You have to just be willing to improvise and go with the flow and keep things moving forward, like keep the momentum going.
I mean, I don't know. I'm probably cutting hairs here, but I think like the rules don't really have to be argued with. I agree that there aren't rules to account for every situation, but there are rules to account for what really matters. And anything that requires kind of risk and challenge, that's when you roll dice. You roll the dice, you see what happens, and you give consequences based on, the kind of the judgments that you make. I think there's enough there, but you're right. The GM really has to be comfortable with thinking on the fly.
And I think the other thing we didn't mention was clocks. I think there was some good leverage of clocks here to keep that tension and momentum moving forward. But you have to be using those pretty liberally and like keep things ticking along at a decent pace.
Yeah, and clocks are definitely baked into Forged in the Dark games, but they've existed before that. They're in a lot of other systems and in Powered by the Apocalypse games, for sure, which is kind of the progenitor of Forged in the Dark. Clocks being very simply, we've explained it in past episodes, but people might not have heard those. So basically, clocks are sort of like countdown timers to some event triggering. So they were actually in Wildsea when we played them the other day. And the GM for that explained it very clearly. There was a whiteboard, there was like these little circular dots, and we would check them in if the conditions were fulfilled. And basically, clocks act as two things. They act as a countdown and a recording device, tool for GMs. And for players, I think they add a lot of tension and reward. So
pressure, like stop faffing about and just focus on the good stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when you fulfill that and you make fulfill one of those notches, you feel kind of very rewarded for doing that. It's like, yes, we are making progress. In a lot of traditional RPGs, you don't really know as a player, am I really making progress? How much progress am I making? Am I a quarter of the way there? Am I 2/10 of the way there? I don't really have a good sense of where I'm at, because the GM is God and the GM, holds all the cards behind their screen. But this one really puts that
shows the ticking clock,
out there.
The countdown on the bomb going off, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the good thing about that is that there doesn't have to be just one clock. And it's even more exciting when there's multiple clocks going on. And you can have clocks for not just kind of parallel scenarios, but you can have opposing scenarios. So you can have, well, we're really tilting towards success, or we're really tilting towards failure. And both of those tracks can progress at different rates. So adding even more tension out there for the players to see, and for the GM to really kind of put the screws to their players. Actually, that's making me think that maybe I need to integrate some clocks into my next Eat the Reich episode. That'll
really
keep
light
me
the fire under your players.
Yeah, exactly. These players really, I gotta give them the stern talking to. Anyways, yeah, I really like this system. I feel like we haven't played enough to really get a sense of it. Like there are those other modules that I'd like to try out, like the Plus Weird, like the Predator. So in this box, in this product, which is not really that expensive, I think I got it for like $30 a few years ago. I'm sure it's more expensive now with tariffs and all that. But with each of the kind of modules that you have, the plus weird, the plus predator, whatever, you while you while the main scenario is just one shot, you can have multiple one shots with this game. Multiple. You can probably at least play, 6 or 7 different sessions with just what's in this initial box.
You probably do want a sense of the GM wanting to craft an experience. Like, there's only a couple of actual curated scenarios. Otherwise, like, here's some like tables you can pull elements from to craft your own heist setup, basically. So we have some proficiency with like creating your own scenario
Yeah, for sure.
to maximize
It's
it.
it's definitely not the pre-written adventures that I was alluding to earlier. It's not that at all because of course these are just pamphlets. But they are modules, not modules in the D&D sense, but they are add-on components which kind of bolt on additional functionality in a very modular sense. It's a framework, and a framework that can have components plugged in, and it can tweak your experience. And just like any, GM who's worth their salt has to, eventually approach, is they have to come up with an interesting scenario, or just copy one off of a movie or TV episode you've
If
seen.
you need inspiration for cyberpunk, there's plenty of options out there.
Exactly. I mean, there's like 200 Shadowrun books, novels that exist, like I've mentioned before. So there's a lot in here, even though the package is very, very small. And for that sense, I think it's a great product that's worthy of appreciation. And the artwork is just like fantastic in this. Like, so colorful. Really, it's got that sense of inspiration from things like Morkborg. Morkborg really kind of blew open the indie RPG scene just to be more interesting, more colorful,
Inventive
and more
yeah.
frenetic, and a lot more style. Let's just say. Some people would say too much style and not enough substance, but this one is very, very stylish. No doubt there.
But what a style.
But what a style, heck. And I think one of the players we were playing with, I'm not going to give away his name, just for privacy's sake, but he was Brazilian, and he was showing extreme pride in the key designers and writers for this game. Apparently, a Brazilian team was a big part of putting this together initially, and of course, MythWorks helped them out. But games out of Brazil, this is a great example of one, and very, very successful, I think.
Certainly, yeah. It's a great little intro to that to that playstyle without the intimidation of the giant tome that was like Scum and Villainy, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think Scum and Villainy even isn't that bad. Like, Scum and Villainy doesn't have reams and reams of supplements. It's, a nice digest size. It's actually compact and cute if you want to compare that to the 3-tome volume setups of traditional D&D and 5e even. So it's a big shift from that. But if you're used to multiple books, just having one little pamphlet for your rules, it's going to be a very different proposition for sure.
I'm still struggling to get through the 300 or so pages for Wild Sea, picking away at that. And obviously, we'll be playing more of that, I think, and talking about that in more detail in the future. But that's left a strong impression as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what more to say about this game because I think it's really, really light. If you want something that is essentially pick up and play for a GM that is confident enough to kind of go with the flow and adapt and tell their own stories with interesting kind of mechanisms, I think this is a great option for you. I like how compact it is because, it has kind of the lethality and the tension and the get straight to the action that OSR style games promise.
Yes, yeah.
But it doesn't have kind of the disposable quality that a lot of OSR games have. I feel like OSR just treats your characters like little puppets that are meant to be, consumed and
Meat
used
for the
up.
grinder.
Yeah, this one it feels like allows you to create worlds and scenarios for your characters to really dig into. Oh, and we failed to expand upon the epilogue
Mm.
mechanism. So, um, we completed our run in short order. What we played for like 2.5 hours or three
Thereabouts, yeah.
hours. Yeah, and after we completed our run, the GM was like, "Hey, hold on, we're not all done here." So basically, there was a whole epilogue scenario, and Alex asked us, what was the question he asked us about the epilogue?
Well, there's this start at the very start of the game. You set up like, what's your motivation here? Like, are you here to learn the
Yes,
truth? Are you here to burn it all down? Are you here to get revenge?
yeah, our angle. So I
That's the
can
word.
explain this very simply because it's right there on the front third of the folio. Angle, convey what you ultimately run for. The 6 options are: get out, make them pay, look after them, upgrade life, learn the truth, or take a stand. Our players were really interesting because we didn't communicate with each other beforehand, but like half of us,
Well, everyone except me, basically.
yeah, exactly. The majority of us, so say 80% of the players chose learn the truth. I guess we're all feeling the X-Files ish vibe out of this thing.
I
So
was very much the playing into that one shot, like go loud, burn it all down. I don't care if I live through this or not.
yeah, well, that's like a big part of Cyberpunk too, right? It's like the Johnny Silverhand thing is like let's see it all burn, part of it. But so he asked us this right at the beginning, and basically it came out in the end. And basically he goes to each one of the players and asks, basically, how did your character learn the truth, or how did you make them pay? And there's basically he asks you the question, how did it work out? And then he gives you a little epilogue. And so you feel like your character, though they died, or, maybe they retired, you got to see them, walk into the sunset. You got to see them burn out in a flame. You feel good and okay that your character died. I guess that's what I feel this game gives that the typical OSR games don't, is the due and respect that a
The
character
closure.
the closure that you
Mm.
to a character that you devoted time to building. You know, I don't think that characters are disposable. I think characters should have the risk of dying, but I think, you put so much heart into representing a character, they deserve to have their story completed. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think some might feel it's a little arbitrary to like have your ending basically be decided by a single dice roll at the end of the game, regardless of how the rest of it played out. If you know what I mean? Like
Oh, that's right.
it's a bit disjointed from everything that's led up to that point. I mean, at the same time, I rolled a critical success on my ending, so like I lived through it despite my attempts otherwise. But
Yeah.
it was good fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I failed to mention that, yes, you're right. There is a dice roll that the GM uses to kind of determine how successful your character is at the angle that they started with. So I thought that was really rewarding. I really enjoyed it. And I think everyone at the table thoroughly enjoyed that experience. Even the players that were new to the system. I definitely want to play again. So I think in that sense, it's a successful product.
Absolutely. Yeah. Much like those little brochures, that was a very dense discussion that we had there. Ran a little long. We had another game we wanted to talk about, but maybe we want to save that for next episode.
I think we should hold on to it. We've talked at length about this particular game, and it's been too long since we talked about a TTRPG, so I think it's great that we took this opportunity.
And it's nice to go in depth and be able to compare it and all that out of a single one shot. It's a pretty rich game.
That's right. So if you are interested in this game, I feel like you need to find out a little bit more about Forged in the Dark if you haven't discovered it, heard about it before. So if you want to learn more, no better place than our episode of Scum and Villainy, the Forged in the Dark space game.
I know Blades 68 just came out too, I think, which is another flavor for that setting if you want to try that out.
I think that game looks super cool. I love that 1960s kind of spy aesthetic. and that what was that video game about time loops that
Deathloop.
Deathloop, yeah. Deathloop looked really cool and felt really cool. I don't know if the
I need to
gameplay
revisit
was
that.
all there. I need to revisit it too, unfortunately.
R.I.P.
Yeah,
Arcane. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. I feel like Arcane must be the like direct influencer or whisperer to Forged in the Dark
Well,
games because
Dishonored feels very Blades in the Dark too, right?
exactly no
Yeah.
Blades in the Dark feels very Dishonored.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Right? I don't love Blades in the Dark because it's a little too grim dark. For my taste, like it's all about like dark and gloomy, Victorian England with coal blotting out the sky and then ghosts powering batteries and things like that. It's not really my scene. And then Blades 68 in 68. That's what it's called.
68. Yeah.
Totally flips that on its edge and fast forwards you into a 1960s version of that world, Duskfall, and everything's jiving and
There's a little more
groovy.
flair and some flare pants that too.
Yeah, so you can do your best whatever Austin Powers or no The Operative, No One Lives Forever. Is that what it was called? That PC game from the 90s?
Oh.
What was it, the 90s? The 2000s? Anyway, someone's going to remember that one. Or Deathloop that we just talked about. I guess a little bit lighter, kind of more tongue-in-cheek view of that world, I think would be very cool.
Excellent. Well, yeah, let's dig into that some more.
Yeah. Shall we dig into another course?
Yes, yeah, let's jump to dessert. A couple of things I had to talk about last week, but we skipped over, is that I recently talked about watching The Hobbit with my daughter, the Rankin Bass film. And I think I hinted then that I was looking to track down another one of their films that I had watched as a child. I had a battered old VHS that was probably taped off the TV. But I hadn't watched in 25 years, and for years I've been trying to figure out what the name of that film was. I was thrown by all the posters being a very different style, but in short, I eventually figured out it's a little film called The Flight of Dragons. So this is also produced by Rankin Bass and Topcraft, the sort of prototypical Studio Ghibli. It came out a few years after The Hobbit, and it feels very similar in terms of its design and sense of pacing. Very strange sort of flow of consciousness in its storytelling. It's very much a piece of its time. The color scheme feels like moss on a tree trunk, just very sepia tone greens and browns essentially, and very strange designs of the dragons. It's like the sort of thing that looks cool as a still image, but moving does not look very aerodynamic at all. Basically, all these dragons have like a giant balloon ball in the middle of them, which feels very strange, but makes more sense when you learn that it actually was based on a book that's not a novel, but actually a fictional natural science book that actually just yesterday went by one of my local bookshops, independent bookshops that I liked, and found the original that I have here, The Flight of Dragons. So I don't know if anyone else can see there, but very lumpy, strange dragon designs that's the movie pulls from as well. So I'm looking forward to reading through that. The movie, it's very much a piece of its time, casual misogyny and all. So it's hard to necessarily recommend, but it was a fascinating artifact, and it was fun to revisit that moment of my childhood.
Very cool. That reminds me that the other day I was mentioning, you were talking about Pokopia, and I was mentioning that there's a kind of a Pokemon ecology book.
Yes.
And I discovered it. It's coming out in English. So that book is called Pokemon Pokology. And I just wanted to say that we'll drop a link.
Yeah, I'll try and track it down for my
check it
daughter.
out. Very cool. Yeah, it's a beautiful looking book. It's got diagrams that you mentioned, kind of ecology of fictional things, and that instantly made me think of Pokology. It shows little diagrams of Pokemon in their natural environment, adapting and living and persisting with nature. So I
Yeah, I
thought
mean,
that was cool.
this movie goes very much into the nitty gritty of like, oh, the dragons eat this kind of rock, so that then inflates their bellies, and they basically float and have to release the gas to descend, and like, probably a little too much information for the pacing of the film, but it's a fun twist.
There you go. There's a reason they can float, despite being not so aerodynamic. Okay, speaking about, I guess, migration of sorts, let me talk about a book that I read recently. It is a fictional book, but it's also kind of nonfiction. I guess it's like essays, essentially. This is a book from, I believe it's from UBC Press, so written and published locally, called Crossing Lines, the new graphic anthology that explores human migration through comics. So I was inspired recently by someone who just, became a naturalized Canadian recently. Don't know who that might be, but I was reminded of that, or thought about that topic of becoming a citizen. Of course, I am also immigrant, naturalized Canadian, but many, many, many years ago in my youth. Anyways, this graphic novel is not just like one story. It's basically like mini essays in graphic form. So I think there's something like 6 or 7 mini essays. So they form various chapters, and each of them has a different author and different comic style. The one that's displayed on the cover of Crossing Lines is very, very evocative, and it basically shows this kind of like what's the reference that's coming to mind? Do you know a comic strip called Family Matters?
I know the name, I couldn't bring it to
I
mind.
think it's called Family Matters. It's the one with what is his name? It's basically shows like a comic strip, and the whole comic strip is just like one character following this line, and then they make a mess throughout the house, and then they get distracted by the pet, and then they go over here and they bother their mom in the kitchen, and the whole comic strip is just like following them through the course of their day. And the on the cover of Crossing Lines, you basically follow the story of 6 different migrants having a different experience at the Vancouver International Airport. And of course, the one that, you know, now citizens like yourself and I have most often is we land at our port, we go up to the citizens line, we show our Canadian passport, they ask a couple of questions, we make it through, and then we hail a taxi and we go home, right? That's that's the typical quote unquote experience for people that have access, but they have other scenarios as well. They talk about an individual that's First Nations person, and the First Nations perspective is I don't have to have a show a passport because I have my people have lived in this land for time immemorial. I just need to show my status card, and I can cross between these lands, which never had a border in them to begin with, centuries ago. That was imposed upon the First Nations recently by the colonizers, right? So that's a different scenario. Another scenario is about a student that comes to Canada. So they've been accepted to their college, and they intend to work, and then the basically the person interviewing them says, "Oh, you need a different permit for that. You have to have this signed out before I can let you pass." But my class is starting in next week. What am I going to do? So, and then another is about like a migrant worker. And a migrant worker, they broke their arm or something, and they're being sent back to their country because their employer won't continue to sponsor them if they're not able to work. So, very different views upon immigration and migration, and that's why it's called Crossing Lines. So that's just one of the chapters. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
gonna,
obviously, we're feeling the effects of borders much more explicitly right now. But I mean, at my citizenship ceremony a couple of weeks ago, it was very heartwarming to see so much diversity, and a lot of teary eyes, and a lot of people coming here from everyone's come from a wide variety of different paths to get here. Obviously, we're very blessed to have a pretty wide diversity of perspectives in Vancouver here. And comics and they sort of different art styles, different perspectives. It's a great way to showcase some of those stories.
Yeah, one of the particular chapters I thought of you immediately when I was reading it was the very kind of charming chapter that shows basically all the characters are birds, and they're different breeds of birds. You know, some are Canada geese, of course, but some are, blue jays and things like that. And the joke is that birds, they don't respect borders; they just land wherever they want to. So the joke is they're all waiting in line to become, new Canadians or something like that, and they're like, what are you talking about? Yeah, this bird ran into some trouble with the border guards because they didn't respect the border or something like that. So it was a little joke, more humorous scene. I think that you'll enjoy that one a
What
lot.
kind of bird am I then? Galah, probably.
Yeah, there you go. But maybe you're the flightless bird, right? The
Emu.
the emu, right? No, but here's a serious question that I do have for you yourself, Daniel, because you talked about diversity, you talked about becoming a Canadian recently. Have you ever been asked, "What are you?"
Not necessarily. I mean, people assume that I'm, British or Irish or any number of other places, but never in a very accusing sense, right?
Right,
I am largely accepted to just like I belong here, which is a privilege that I enjoy.
right. So that's a scenario from you, and most people are probably triggered by your, spoken accent, despite the fact that you speak English fluently. Your accent, the dialect, triggers people that, oh, you're from somewhere else. Some people might ask, where are you from? And that's what the very first line of the first chapter of the book, where are you from, or whatever. And it's a really, really fascinating comic strip told from the perspective of the asker, of course, being, an Anglo-white Canadian, and then the person who is asked, who is I think of Middle Eastern descent in appearance anyway, based on the comic strip, and it's basically showing all the layers of the experiences she had in migrating to Canada from, well before. It was not an easy one. Coming from one location, you take a flight and you land somewhere else. It was all these various steps that her and her family had to go through, being, fleeing from war zones, being chased away, trying to find work and not having it. So you have to migrate another time, and this and that. And of course, the implicit um, statement with a question like, where are you from? Or what are you? This is a question that was asked of me in my youth. And I always thought it was strange. Even as a kid, I always thought, why are they asking me what I am? That's really weird. And of course, they meant, what is my ethnic background? And I'm pretty sure no one's ever asked you your ethnic background. Like, they don't
My
care that.
presence has never been questioned, right? Yeah.
Right. Also, they wouldn't care if your, maternal grandfather was Swedish and your paternal grandfather was Finnish, right? They wouldn't care about that, right? They don't care about white people. They don't care about the genetic background of white people. If you're white, you're in the club.
I'm an
But they that
Australian, which by default is like a hodgepodge of everything else anyway, right?
right, and theoretically, so are we in North America. My
Yes.
wife descended from Europeans, but no one cares if her great grandparent was Scottish or Dutch. But I've been asked, what am I? And I always thought that was a strange question. So this book lets you see from different perspectives, and it does it in a really kind of elegant way. And because this is a academic book, there's actually questions, like recommended
Hmm.
questions that you can
Like
ask
study questions,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, the character asked this question, and the other character responded in this way. What does this make you think? Or did this different portrayal of these characters make you consider these angles or those angles? So I think it's really, really powerful. It would probably Nothing in it would be too scary to show to a kid, but there's some darker themes like depression and things in there. But I think any adult who lives like in international city like Vancouver, with people from all different backgrounds and coming and going, with our legacy of colonization, First Nations, and colonizers, I think deserves to read this book. I think it's really, really powerful. So that's Crossing Lines. There's a number of different authors in it because it's bunch of different comic essays. Well worth reading from the University. I'll write it down later, but it's from the University of British Columbia. Well worth a read.
Excellent. I'll definitely check that out.
Very cool. All right. Well, we have lots of material for our next episode to cover.
Yes, yeah, already got a couple of episodes worth of games banked. But if you have any questions or comments on today's topics, you can contact us at omnigamersclub@gmail.com or at our website, omnigamers.club.
That's right. You can catch our episodes in video form. We put them up on YouTube every time a new episode comes out. If you want to check out our back catalog, all our earliest episodes are in audio form only, so get those on a podcatcher of your choosing. Should you want to follow the podcast or Daniel on social media, you can follow them at these locations.
Well, you can find me at Blue Sky at Board Game Feast and the Omnigamers Club account there as well. So you're not looking back on social media there, Mark?
No, I've totally cut it off. I've been getting my news via RSS feeds, so a little bit retro that way, but I've been enjoying it. I was a big RSS reader for a long time, and sad when Google Reader went away, but I've been using this service called Feedly to follow RSS feeds in the meanwhile, and it's okay. It does the job. It's really, really interesting. When I am finished reading my stories for the day, there aren't any more. It's over. My reading has an end. And sometimes I feel bad. I feel like, but I wanted to read more. I wanted to doom scroll more, but I can't because I run out of new stories. And that's actually really, really good. It's like a built-in kind of turn-off switch. So I really actually like that, and I'm not going to add more news sources.
I'm definitely jealous. Finishing a TBR pile is is very much a pipe dream at this point.
Right, that's the joke with social media, right? Is because you can't finish it, and I think that's not such a great thing. So yeah, I have quit all social media. I'm trying to remember if there is any that I have. I have accounts. I haven't deleted my accounts from any of those. If you see me there. But, you know, if you reach out to me on Facebook Messenger or whatever, I won't respond just because I'm not checking them. And I'm feeling okay. I still plan to go to local events like, Rain City Games, one-shots, like TCTC, I'm going to try and go out to the Vancouver Playtest Group like we talked about last week.
Yeah, I mean, as we were discussing, like building up that sense of community, I think is much more important right now, especially.
Yeah, I'm going to try and have more connections with the humans in my life and more face to face, and try and make digital connections that really matter.
Excellent. Yeah, well, we're both trying out some new role-playing groups. We've got some ideas for some new initiatives, perhaps for trying some other games down the road. So stay tuned to that. I guess I'll be posting them on social media otherwise.
Yeah, I feel bad about putting the workload on yourself, so I apologize for that.
That's okay. I can't switch it off. In the meantime, everyone have a balanced diet of games. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye. Bye.